Next up, if we could cue the video, the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development have produced a film for today's event that will highlight several small business success stories within the Silver State, many of these utilizing the Battleborn Venture Program, a state venture capital program created in 2013 to help entrepreneurs stay local when it comes to fundraising. Since then, it has invested in high potential Nevada startups, has co-invested with prestigious corporations and high profile venture capital firms, and has celebrated 5 exits. If you have any questions or comments for the Nevada GoEd team, please feel free to catch them during the break or after the event, and they'll be happy to visit with you. So without further ado, and anybody online, if you can't hear or there's problems, just give us a thumbs down so we know something's wrong.
For joining us today. I really appreciate it. You are really, a typical Nevada company, and I'm very proud that you are part of our portfolio. Let me just ask you a couple of questions for our founders, for our audience. Let me head off with your business. If you could sort of briefly describe what your business does, what makes you, get up in the morning and build that business, why you founded it in the first place. So, just a little bit of background of yourself in the business.
Yeah, so High Bear, we make the Swiss Army tool of insulated bottles. You can craft all your favorite beverages from cold brew to cocktails. But really what we do is we innovate through smart design within the outdoor and adventure travel space. For those of you that aren't familiar with our product, this is our night hike color, and it's glass lid, double wall stainless steel insulation. It has like this removable sleeve on it. And underneath you have like this under art there. That's like for a dog or a friend. You can invert the lid and do pour over coffee with it, but just encourage you to just go over to highbear.co and check us out there, and you can learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do. We're a 1% for the planet company, climate neutral certified. We all sit down as armchair quarterbacks and we think like, if it's such a great idea, why hasn't somebody done it? Because it's hard. It's really hard. And then if you're doing it and you say yourself as easy, you haven't gotten to the hard stuff yet. And it doesn't get any easier. So you constantly have to be innovating in every silo of your company. And you can have the greatest product in the world. And if you don't properly market and sell your product, then, nobody's going to hear about it. So, at High Bear, we have a multi-channel approach on how we distribute our product. So we have our own website, right? So your direct to consumer sales or DDC or D2C sales on there. And then you need to funnel traffic to your website. And so that can be done through unpaid and paid channels, right? And so in the unpaid capacity is things like social media. So you have your TikToks, your X, your Facebook, Instagram, on how you kind of engage and build that audience. And when you have that traffic comes to the site, you need to be able to capture those people so you can, they might not buy initially. So you need to be able to retarget to them. And you want to capture their email addresses and so you can stay in contact. And really you're just trying to build a tribe, build your, 1,000 true fans of your brand and your company. People that are just raving fanatics that just love who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And that will help spread the word, but you can't just survive with those, especially if you're like High Bear right now, where you're a one product company, right? Because you need to give people a compelling reason to come back. And so we do have other products in the hopper. The other end of it is kind of that paid aspect, right? So, some people just hire an agency and, you're just going to drive traffic, your ADA, your awareness, interest, decision, action, to your website. So like kind of top of funnel stuff is just getting people like introduced to the product, and you want to make sure that you drive that sort of attention. They might not purchase initially, unless your product is like super cheap or it doesn't like take very much. But I think like once you're above a certain threshold, I mean, it depends on who you ask. It could be greater than $50. So we're like kind of in that bracket between $50 and $100. Where it might take like a few more touches. And you need to figure out who that target market is. And that paid aspect can kind of help you optimize like, who your target market is. Like, ours is, adventure travelers and outdoor enthusiasts, but those categories are enormously broad. You need to be able to boil them down into like your key personas. And you're going to dial in all of your different creative, which is your photos, your videos, all this other stuff that kind of support your brand story, the story that people tell themselves of like people like us do things like this, or buy things like this, or have these things in order to, support, their lifestyle.
You talked about to cultivate sort of your key, key customers, the customer groups. And that was, when we did the due diligence on your company, was one of the sort of very positive that you have this, hardcore following. And so if you could sort of, elaborate a little bit on that. So how do you cultivate them? Do you have like, where you have events where you go to join them on, certain, occasions, or how do you cultivate, that core group?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think like one of the most important things that we did as a company was that when we built the product, we were building the product for somebody very specific. We were building it for that persona. We were those people that were outside. And so we were kind of scratching our own itch of like, okay, we know that the stuff in our bags need to be able to do more than just one thing, and insulated bottles are extremely limited in what they can do. They're amazing, they're fantastic products, but how can we innovate within this space? And so that's kind of, we started with the end in mind, right? So we built this product for those people. And how we kind of cultivate, I think it's harder and harder, right? Like in the digital world to capture attention. And in a sense, you're just creating that content to kind of speak to that one persona. On the in real life side, we try to do as many events as possible to get out, whether it's just athletic events, concerts, or just out into the community in general. And it's super interesting because you might build a product with the end in mind of like, this is who I'm building this for. But then you see who's actually buying the product and you're going, I would never have guessed in a million years that this specific person was going to be buying my product. Like, 75-year-old grandma that loves her grandchildren who are all outdoor enthusiasts. We were like, oh yeah, I forgot about her, right? But she comes around in real life when we have like, a tent set up all the time. And she might not be on social media, right? And that's why it's important to be, omnipresent. That's just one particular channel and one particular silo, which is, our direct-to-consumer side. Then that's a good segue into, what do you do for in real life, right? When you have something tangible that people need to touch, hold, feel, right? Like, because I can present all day and tell you like, this is an awesome product. Be like, but until you actually hold it in your hand, you're like, oh, I get it. And so that's why retail was really important for us. I initially thought it was going to be a challenge, and it always is going to be a challenge. But it turns out that it's an important channel for us, not only just for sales, but also for marketing as well. And if you think about this, if you're a new brand, what better way to establish yourselves in terms of brand value by putting your product next to some of the most important products within your category. So for us, if we're in like the lifestyle outdoor category, those are the types of stores that we're targeting in order to get. So our product can be next to, the Patagonias and the North Faces of the world. And so now we have quality by association in doing that. And if we can get into more stores and we're more omnipresent and we have penetration within that particular community, which is a really, really good way of winning people over in that way. So I guess building on that persona and like how we actually reach that end consumer, retail is a wonderful way. So yeah, we view that in two ways, which is both distribution and also marketing.
For the folks that in the audience, founders, probably very early stage, thinking about plans to build the company. So at one point, just operational expenses. I mean, you're all bootstrapping at the beginning. They're raising your pre-seed round, the seed round, and then at one point you're getting you're scaling up. At what point are you then deciding, okay, I can't do it all on my own. I need to hire some folks. I need to hire like a I don't know, VP of marketing or something like that. So how did you go about it there? At one point, did you make the decision? Have you made it already? Or how do you go about that? Where you're saying, well, I need to put now investment in people to drive the, those sales.
That's such a fantastic question. And I think that the answer that you would get if you ask like 100 different people is there's a couple different things. You have a finite amount of time and energy to spread yourself within each one of the silos, right? And you can only, yourself can only go so far. You can use freelancers in order to kind of augment yourself and get plugged in there. But at a certain point, you'll figure out that there is no substitute for having some other people on board that believe in your mission, that can help carry the torch and then move it forward. But what are those key indicators, right? Like, you've already gone through your proof of concept, right? So maybe you've generated some sales, right? Maybe you have also some data to kind of support that. You've traveled the road enough to know that, all right, now it is time because I'm spread so thin. And in order to take this to the next level, I have to bring somebody else on board. Now, there's two things that need to happen there, right? Like, because you don't want to bring somebody on board and then you're not able to pay them. So either you need to have money raised and have a plan in place that's going to substantiate that, and then you have the data that's going to support that, right? Or you're going to be self-sufficient where you have the sales that are generating within the company that's going to be able to kind of support those additional personnel within the company.
Occasions, situations where you're saying, okay, this didn't really work out as I envisioned. I need to pivot. Just examples that could, one is fine, that could help the audience. Yeah, I encountered similar, to this, but hey, he made it, so can I. Something that's, where you encountered it, you found a solution, you addressed it and moved on. So something that will help in that respect.
Yeah, I think two things. I'll give you an example, but I feel like the answer is actually within the question there. Is because business is so dynamic and it's it's just changing all the time. And then that one particular situation is not going to exist in a year, especially like with the way that marketing and distribution work and sales of a product, depending on what type of product that you have. But for us, it was, initially when we did our proof of concept, we kind of, before we did our crowdfunding, we were running kind of Facebook ads, right? To kind of see what those conversions and interest would be. And you're using those various metrics to kind of identify of like, okay, is this going to work? And you're like, wow, this data is actually saying that there's so much interest in this and that there's actually a real big need. And then come iOS changes, right? So back, I think that was, I guess maybe 4 years ago now or 3 years ago now, where you can't hyper target the way that you once could, once upon a time. So where, we were running really, really targeted ads and we were doing really, really well. And then we had a pretty successful crowdfunding campaign. And then we had our products delivered. And then there was iOS changes. And you're saying, oh shit. The actual paid aspect of it is a lot more difficult than we thought it was going to be. And we can't just depend on direct to consumer anymore. How do we overcome this? Right? And yeah, you can just stop there and be like, okay, my plan was just to do this. This was my plan. I'm just going to throw money into ads. I'm going to generate sales and I'm going to sip margaritas on the beach. No. And that's going to happen so many more times. And I found that, just that one iOS change was just kind of the general theme, is that there is no such thing as the silver bullet in business, because if you can find it, just don't tell anybody. Because it's just like arbitrage, right? Like, just like that spread just gets dried up as like people just find out more about it, right? And that's more or less what happened to us. So what we did to kind of overcome that is we're just like, okay, we need to diversify, right? We need to diversify through sales channels. And, how we're going to do that is just identify them and come up with a plan for each and be able to execute, right? Because what we found is that if direct to consumer is going to fire in Q4, right? How do we level out the sales throughout the year? And that was through retail or corporate sales, and now we're finally rolling out within the Amazon channel for maybe within the next 30 days. So yeah, and again, so the answer was within the question. It's just about being resilient, that you believe enough in what you're going to do that you're going to go to battle. And that's what it comes down to. It's not failure until you just say, hey, listen, I'm done. All my resources are exhausted. I can't do this anymore. I have to tap out. But until that point in time, you will figure out a way.
Is there anything before we close out, that you would like to have, the audience to know, that you'd like to share, anything?
Yeah, it's just, if you're here today learning about this, you have an idea and you want change, go for it. You're doing it now. So take those steps and you're going to kill it.
Sort of kick it off with a brief description about yourself, what your company does, and why and how you founded this company. Anything that helps the founders in the audience. Please share.
Yeah, sure. My name is Peter Tomasic, and I'm the founder of Let's Rollo. And Rollo is essentially a micro CRM attached to digital business cards that helps you track the people that you meet from first contact to lead. And the reason why I actually started this business was I created a set of paper business cards with QR codes on them, with V cards embedded in the QR codes. And I noticed how when I handed these out, people were very delighted at seeing people's contact information immediately available on their phone. But very quickly, I realized that that was only a one-way exchange of information, and you likely never heard from that person again. And so I adapted that flow so that both sides of that interaction get each other's information. And more importantly, the person who's handing out the business card probably actually wants to remain in contact with the person that they, gave their business card to. And so we found that compared to traditional business cards, which convert at a rate of around 10%, when you hand someone a business card, this method is closer to about 65%. So it's pretty drastic increase.
Well, excellent. Just one more basic question again before we dive deeper into the sort of strategy and how you market, how you reach customers. This is not your first gig, so you're really a serial entrepreneur. So what makes you tick? I mean, what makes you setting up the next business after you have an exit? Just something that the audience will be inspired by.
What makes me tick? I've sort of realized over time that I don't do well without a lot of agency and having my own decision making. So I live and breathe in the land of startups, and bringing something into reality from 0 to 1 is way more exciting than plugging myself in as a cog in a wheel. And the risk equals reward in life, and yeah, so.
Well, these are great reasons. So, I'm pretty sure that a lot of folks in the audience will share that that experience and that spirit. Well, let's dive deeper into your current company and how you win customers. So, you already described what you do, but so it's pretty defined as, what the market is and, or niche that you're targeting. But what's really your strategy to win customer? Okay, you described the product, but what is the strategy that you win customers through?
Yeah, so essentially, as you can imagine, a business card can be applied pretty broadly. And so, firstly, the product in itself is inherently virulent. And what I mean by that is the actual action of sharing information. You could think of that as almost like a sign up, of this new person, but not really, right? They don't really realize that they've signed up to a service or that they potentially could be a super networker in that moment. And so one of the strategies is a really carefully thought out drip campaign, whether it comes over SMS, email, or push notifications. Trying to convert those people into Rollo users themselves. And so that's the top of the funnel for, let's say, day-to-day consumers, which we have a very low price option for them. If we see that we've had a couple of people from the same company join Rollo, then we reach out and try to convert that entire sales team or that entire organization onto Rollo. So that's part of our enterprise top of the funnel. We're still early in our life cycle, so we're not, spending money on paid ads or anything like that. Basically, we have an organic strategy to grow the company. Excuse me.
Right. How staff intensive is it? How much can you automate, especially this outreach, or do you use or utilize, volunteers, or how do you, get the outreach done?
It's extremely automated. So we use a platform called Customer.io, which has a startup-friendly pricing plan of 90% off, which allows you to create user journeys and intercept people based on segmentation. So like whether or not they've created their first card or how they came into contact with your product, and then react based upon how many actions the customer has taken.
Excellent. No, that helps. Now, you mentioned that you're fairly early still in the phase of in the company, but from what you can see, since you're a serial entrepreneur, you have a plan. So this is the first stage which you described, and say you're moving into the second stage, really scale up. How would this look, differently? Just something that, for the founders in the audience, what they could take away with, what are the different phases, how they can relate to, where you currently are, but also what you're planning going forward.
Yeah, certainly. So some of the things that we foresee as the company ages is having a really established sales cycle with enterprise customers. As you know, it takes a very long time to convert one of those. And having, a sales engineer and an AE and a seller, that'll cost money. And so the goal is to, be able to sustain a staff like that, and then to go up to the next phase of development. So it's almost like a bootstrapped approach, sort of in alignment with some VC growth metrics. So, yeah.
No, understood. I mean, we have seen this in our portfolio. We have cases where, like yourself, that companies are aware of more realistically how they could scale, and others where they add stuff relatively quickly, and then they run out of funding, and then they need to raise the next round and the next round, and if the market conditions worsen, then they are in trouble, and so they managing that growth is important.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that raising money is a full-time job, and when you're doing that, you're not focusing on your business. And I've learned that over the years. So the faster you can just, put your head down and work on the business rather than constantly going out and raising money, you're going to be in a better place. So.
Oh, thank you, really mentioning this, because that's what we are from portfolio managers' point of view. That's what we are seeing. The successful companies that are still in business, that are, successful, are exactly that. They are focused on the product, focus on the business, to build the business, and secondly on fundraising. So that you would like to add that you're passionate about, what you would like these audience of founders to know, in addition, not just the company currently, but from your past previous gigs.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I hope that you're all building your companies in Nevada, because the spirit of entrepreneurship is alive here, unlike other places in the United States. I truly believe that. When I started my last company called Influential, we went on to raise over $50 million in venture, and none of that money came from investors in the state of Nevada. And I can confidently say that if we started it again, that number would be much different. And so I'm really sort of proud of that, and I love the changes that are going on, and thank you, Karsten, for being part of that.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you for growing your business here, and actually seeing, what we are trying to do. We have been trying to do over the last few years, and now with this event being in rural Nevada, we're really hoping that we can attract, founders from every corner of the state, because we have this pioneering spirit right here. So, no, thank you for that. And yeah, that's really it. And I mean, we were really honored that you are, part of this panel. I mean, as you just so said in passing, you raised, more than $50 million in your last round. So you're not a, small entrepreneur. So, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've been very successful, and we're really honored to be, that you are on this panel. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we have Daniel Vincent, the founder of Outlaw Soaps, today with us as well. Start off with just briefly describe, your business, what Outlaw Soaps does, and why and how you founded the company.
Sure. So we started in 2013, and we make soap and cologne and body wash, basically personal care and personal fragrance for people who want to smell like leather, whiskey, gunpowder, campfire, stuff like that. And it's something that we really love ourselves. We started the company because we go out camping in the desert and, start bonfires and stuff like that. And we wanted something that we could bring that scent and that feeling back to our regular lives, because we learned a lot about scent and found out that we could change our moods by changing the scents around us. So what we wanted to smell like was campfire. Not everybody wants to smell like that, and our product isn't for everybody. So that's okay. So it was my husband and I who founded the company, and we just started in our living room. And over the years, we've grown sometimes faster than others. Obviously, the last year or so has been rough. In the pandemic, because of the lockdown, because everybody suddenly was like shopping online, which is our primary channel, people discovered us. People were like, oh my gosh, this is great, because I can experience the joy of being outdoors without actually having to go anywhere. But really, still at our core, we're just enthusiastic about our customers and the stuff that they do.
With respect to customer growth and really develop the business, the audience here, a lot of founders who are, either thinking of, potentially, building their business, expanding them further from, their current stage, or founders who, just thinking about it, creating my own company or not. So what is out there that you, from your experience, that you have has worked for you, that you have learned? What has worked, what hasn't worked, what anything that you learned that caused you to pivot, for example, Outlaw.
Sure. I will start with something that's a common recommendation that I hear and that I have not found to be good, because I like starting with market research. If you base your company and your customer base on what you've read in market research, that's like such a mess, because you're just going to end up having to market to people who you don't like, don't necessarily respect, don't necessarily relate to. The best thing to do is find the group that, or the people or the type of person who most associates with your product as it is, and figuring out what they like and making the product around what they need. Because then if you've created a product that is exactly what somebody needs, like one type of person, then those people will find you and they will immediately know that your product is the product for them. They'll feel relieved to find that your product exists, and then you can charge a much higher price for it. You have to fight fewer competitors for like that customer. That customer is going to be less distracted by other companies that might pop up.
How would market research really look like in practice? If you could just illustrate, give a few examples.
Sure, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about direct to consumer. Like, so selling through your website or selling in person, if that is appropriate. But if you can get in front of the customer and if you can get direct customer feedback, you can make product adjustments and you can listen to what the customer really needs. They'll tell you because they ultimately want you to solve their problems. That's one of the beautiful things about the right, perfect customer, is that they want you to succeed. They're on your team. And that is only achieved by getting in front of the customer. If you start out selling wholesale and getting in grocery stores, for example, you might never talk to an end customer. You might never talk to the person who's eating, say, your nutritional bar or you're taking your supplement. You might never say, like, does this flavor offend you? Or do you love this flavor? But when you have a direct relationship with the customer, that they want to provide that feedback to you. That's one of the beautiful things about the right, perfect customer, is that they want you to succeed. They're on your team. And that is only achieved by getting in front of the customer. If you start out selling wholesale and getting in grocery stores, for example, you might never talk to an end customer. You might never talk to the person who's eating, say, your nutritional bar or you're taking your supplement. You might never say, like, does this flavor offend you? Or do you love this flavor? But when you have a direct relationship with the customer, that they want to provide that feedback to you. And so that's one of the things I think is most wonderful and most beautiful about having the online landscape right now makes it possible to have these kind of relationships in a scalable way, instead of having like a focus group or a, like tasting seminar or having to open a storefront. You can actually interact directly with the customer without having to go to market with a huge, you don't have to sign a 5-year lease in order to have a conversation with a customer. You can just call them.
For that product, so for your product, are you seeing sort of like a critical mass of buyers who are sort of interacting, who are basically saying, well, we really love those products, and then organize around it? Are you having that experience as well?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because right now 80% of our products, 80% of our orders are placed by people who are already Outlaw customers. And that is that's like a true fan base, because we had to cut our ad spend way back. Our sales did suffer because we're not acquiring new customers, but because we have such incredible retention and incredible relationships with our customers, our sales have not dropped off a cliff. This is not an existential crisis right now, just because of the fan base that we have and the relationship that we have with our existing customers. It's really beautiful. I was able to publish a reel on Instagram the other day saying, hey, we need your help. We're getting ready for Christmas. Go buy your Christmas presents early. We need help making it through to the holidays. I mean, it's tough times all around. This is just startup life. And we had immediately just a bunch of customers forwarding that reel, watching that reel, saving that reel, sharing that reel. I mean, it was really just such a lovely, delightful moment of feeling supported by our customers.
We are, and you are often seeing. So in addition to Outlaw, you also, run your own consultancy company, with, in this field. So you're really passionate about it. So I really like to, for the benefit of the audience, of the founders, to, pick your brain on a few specifics. So, for example, we are hearing often, I had an ad social media agency, but I'm not seeing any results, and I need to find someone who knows what they're doing. Any response to that?
Yeah, what the heck is my social media person doing? I'm not seeing any results. They said they were the best, and now I'm not seeing anything that I would really consider the best. And this is something, I mean, it's just all over the forums. It's all over my networking groups, everything. And the reason that this is a situation is not because these agencies are scammers or they're trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or anything. The fact is, nobody knows what the heck is going on. Like the algorithm changes so rapidly. There's privacy settings that are changing on practically a weekly basis. So somebody, and sure, there's this argument that well, yeah, marketers should, make sure that they're up to date on all the things. However, nobody actually announces what the new thing is. It just suddenly changes. All of a sudden, your effectiveness drops off a cliff. You don't know why. This is such a common problem. And so I can't really blame the agencies. For the most part, agencies, freelancers, contractors, consultants, they're just doing the best they can given the circumstances. And so if you have somebody who was kicking butt and then all of a sudden they're not, it's just a changing landscape that's changing so rapidly, it's just hard to keep track of. The one thing I will say that is, as long as your primary communication with an audience and with your customers is on a platform that is owned by someone else, that is like social media, your ability to reach your customers is always going to be at their whim. So, and that's why I focus so much on newsletters and having a good email relationship with the customers always. Because if you can create a good email relationship, if you can get a good growth in your email list, if you can have good deliverability and make sure that those things are happening, you have a lot higher chance of reaching those customers who are your customers. We have more than 100,000 followers on Facebook. We regularly reach less than 5% of them, which is unreal. Like, we spent a decade building that customer base. And then just I can almost show you in a chart. Like, it was fine, drop off. And it was, my friend correctly pointed out that I am a problem solver. So I became obsessed with this problem of why we had such a drop off in reach and stuff like that. You can easily lose track of the bigger picture when you go down a rabbit hole. And the truth is, the industry had changed. I was stubbornly still trying to fix this one stupid problem. And I didn't take a step back. It's always a game for entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs. It's so hard because you are so close to the thing you're making, the operations, the quality, the, individual customers. But at the same time, at least once a week, you have to spend a few hours going back and looking at the industry, the business, the, overall what's working, what's not working. How can I optimize everything to serve the people who are going to make the biggest difference in my business overall, not just, fix this one Facebook ad.
So should I go to trade shows, craft fairs, in-person events? It's expensive, in-person events are often free, but, they are often not in the place where you live or where the business is. So, travel expenses, trade shows, are expensive in their own right. So every, startup is bootstrapping. Any advice you have on that?
Oh my gosh, trade shows can be so expensive. The biggest natural foods trade show on the West Coast, UNFI, is, I think it's like $12,000 for just the booth fee. And that doesn't include travel, that doesn't include setup, that doesn't include booth people, and of course your first year, they stick you in the basement in the far corner. So you probably won't even make that back until your third year. It's good to get in front of customers, and it's always good to have a good in-person relationship with customers. And trade shows are a good way to do that without having to drive all over the dang place and stop by places, especially for rural businesses. You can kind of get yourself together and get out where people are going to see you.
I'm assuming business has already traction with wholesale customers. Do you still recommend having, an online presence? What size of the online presence? Any thoughts on that?
For me, there's this old saying, or kind of folk wisdom, I guess, in the industry, which is find the way you like to sell and make that your primary selling mechanism. I suck at wholesale sales. I have, because of that, not been able to sufficiently train any wholesale reps because I can't train what I don't know. And so we haven't really done that well in wholesale, not because we're not a great product for it, just I don't like that channel. I love online because of the direct relationships, stuff like that. So I think that first and foremost, focus on saturating the sales channel that you like the best, that makes you the happiest. Analogy the other day, when I was thinking about this interview was, if I'm gonna build a house and I'm using a hammer to hammer in a bunch of screws, it's not gonna be the best way of, building the house. And that is how I think of my wholesale sales approach, is I'm walking around with a hammer, hammering in screws. Eventually, I might find somebody who can direct me how to use a screwdriver, but I don't think that's the best use of my time. The best use of my time is finding somebody who learns how to use a screw gun, and who knows how to use a screw gun and hopefully manages a team of other screw gun having people. So in thinking about what information you need to bring in from outside of your business, really thinking about what can you be the best at and who can you hire to be the best.
That you would like to add that we have missed, that you want the audience, the founders to know?
Absolutely. I think the biggest piece of advice is that it is possible. Because it feels impossible 99.999% of the time. Hard to know when a strategy isn't working, if you just need to stick with it longer or if you need to shift strategies. You don't want to flip all over the place with 1,000 different strategies because then you'll be scattered. But you also don't want to tie yourself to an anchor if that strategy is going down. The most important thing is really having the awareness to go, is this working? Do I still think this has potential. And then if it looks like it's not working, really evaluate whether you think, should I keep going with this or should I try something else? And then in the rear view mirror, having the forgiveness for if you make a wrong turn, if you decide to stick with a strategy and then you find out later that wasn't the right strategy, just forgiving yourself. Because the longer you spend beating yourself up about any of these mistakes that you make, the less time you're going to be spending making your business great. And that's really what people need to focus on is.
Well, that's wonderful. So like a recurring theme that we have with our portfolio company. It's sort of perseverance and don't be too hard on yourself, you know. In the end, it's still a mission of the business that you're building. So and again, it's having fun. So that's what we're trying to do here with this event. We're trying to really, add this personal touch. Otherwise, it's too abstract. Really, help those founders. You're not on your own. This is a whole community. We're here to help, and we are in this together to grow. Rural Nevada and grow, Nevada in general. So thank you for sharing this, and Bill, thank you for your time. You've been really gracious.
Yeah, thank you. A rising tide raises all boats. When we do better, we all do better. So keep going.
Gerald Baggett here from Circle In. He's one of our first investee companies to Battle One Venture. We actually went into the company through various stages. We invested through like 3 rounds, I believe it was. So it's one of the largest holdings that we have, and one of the longest holdings that we are having. And Gerald that's one of the reasons why we invested in Circle In. He's a genius in sales. So I'm hoping the audience, will take from this founder a lot away. He is really, he gives 100%, he gives 150%. And what you will see that in this in this dialogue, I think. And so, Gerald, just to start us off, if you could bring just to the audience a little bit of an idea what your company does, because it's very specific, and why you founded the company, and how you founded the company.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for pausing, and I'm really, really thrilled that everyone's getting together to think about the next steps to grow their business, because that's a crucial ingredient to any idea is how am I going to pull it all together in terms of customer acquisition. It has to be a strong signal that you're constantly testing and iterating. We'll talk about that. But in terms of Circle In, to give you some context, what we do is we partner with colleges and universities who are trying to have record-breaking graduation results. They're trying to figure out how they can move the needle and see more students cross the finish line. So what we do here at Circle In is we get to have so much fun building communities for students. We've created an interactive studying platform where we allow students to fight for each other, unite together, figure out, problem solve, collaborate. Every student has difficult problems they suffer with. Every student goes through ups and downs in their college journey. And what Circle In is designed to do, just like the name, is enable students to circle in together, share knowledge, be there for one another, and make sure that no one gets left behind. Like, colleges are coming to us to leverage our technology to bring a new energy and a new spirit on their campuses, to move their key performance indicator. And that's critical. We'll talk about that when it comes to your sales and your solutions and your approaches. It's not about what you do, it's about the metrics you're moving for your customer. You need to be speaking in that spirit to fit their strategic plans, not hit your sales goal. Started Circle In, it was really a look back for me. Meaning, I remember when I was in school and when I struggled with my math homework and I got off the bus and I was wrestling with my work and my studies, I had the luck and the fortune to have 2 older sisters who would circle in around me in the kitchen table. And then I had a mother who was an educator who, when she finished teaching her class, would come home and circle in around all of us. So there was never a moment in my life in which I didn't have a community that was making sure that I was going to be successful in each one of my courses. And then when I went out into the real world, I realized that not every home is designed and built exactly like that. I realized how lucky I was. And so I wanted to create a world in which any student from really anywhere over the planet, when someone has a problem and an issue they're wrestling with, they have a community who circles and around them. And we found the opportunity to use the miracle of the internet and some game design to create this this world, and now in which we have A students competing to help create other A students. And that's the nature of Sir Quinn, was wanting to recreate my fortune and my home life for all students everywhere, and hopefully we can reach 1 billion students who go to school every single Monday. That's the long-term vision.
Wonderful, splendid. This is really fascinating because I remember when we first talked. We were both on the panel, so very similar to the panel that we have here in Elko, and it was in Henderson, Nevada, and you shared your vision, and I was sitting next to you, and at that time we were just starting off, and sort of like not quite fulfilling our criteria for our venture program, and then. And he said, we are not quite there yet, but at one point, we will be applied to Battleborn. And I said, well, let's have a conversation because you are so engaged and you have a plan, you have a vision. And so let's have a conversation. This is how it all started. But at that time, this is why I'm sort of mentioning it as well, is you looked at K to 12. That's how you started off. I think you had this grant with Clark County, and that brought you to Las Vegas. And this is how you started off. And then over time, you branched out with your community colleges and universities. So if you could share a little bit, and also keep in mind that the audience is sort of fairly general in, the founders and with respect to industries. You're starting off, okay, you have a certain strategy and to win customers. But at one point, you probably have to adjust, you have to pivot. And let's talk a little bit of, about that in your experience. What has worked, what hasn't, and what strategies have you applied for each individual, avenue?
Yep, great question. So when we first started, we needed to identify not just who we wanted our customer to be, which was middle schools and high schools. We needed within that umbrella. There's several different personas, different people who can buy within a middle school, high school. It could be, and I want you to think about your own customer base. There's different stakeholders that could be potential consumers. So we wanted to test our thesis, our marketing message with each one of those different personas to figure out which audience resonates most with the impact we can make for their strategic goals. That's going to be the theme. So we did a lot of testing, and we got a chance to meet with several different stakeholders, and we found where the message was connecting the most. That's one part of it, is understanding where the message connects the most. The second part of it is figuring out willingness to buy, because you may have a thrilling passion and a riveting solution that you want to bring to Bold, that doesn't mean you have a company. Do they like it, and what's the willingness they are to buy, meaning if we meet with 10 of those stakeholders, what percentage of them are going to be able to move forward, and how much are they going to be able to spend on average? So that's very, very critical. It is doesn't matter if you price a product. It doesn't matter if you do the Excel spreadsheet math and say, oh my God, this is going to be really big. You have to meet with all the stakeholders and figure out the willingness to buy, and then you have a formula. So we established a market, and although you established an initial market, you, as a founder, you are the number one salesperson on your team. I think a lot of people believe they get the job, they get the title, they get the funding, and you immediately go hire a salesperson, and you no longer do sales. It's their job. You are the number one salesperson from the time you start to the time you exit the company. Period. No one will ever be able to tell the story, understand the market, get to know the people, recognize the product, the inflection, the changes you want to make in the product vision, like you will. So we established a market with middle schools and high schools, but then we said, let's continue to test this idea of other segments, adjacent markets, community colleges, universities. And in that process of testing those additional markets, it was always, what's the willingness to buy? And what we found when testing willingness to buy is that what we believed we were going to start the company with, middle schools and high schools, we found that colleges and universities had a higher willingness to buy. Not that the K-12 wasn't going to work, we weren't going to grow that, but that it was much higher return on investment for our solution in college universities. So then we made a shift into who we're targeting because it was larger contract sizes, shorter sales cycles, and we were able to deliver results that the stakeholders needed in a relatively shorter time. So when sitting back and pausing, we tested 3 different markets and found that 2 had a much higher willingness to buy, and that's when we started to really step on the gas. So a key theme that we have to walk away with is understanding 3 to 4 or 5 criteria that you need to test of what's the willingness to buy. And if you're not doing that, then you may be working on false assumptions or hopes or dreams. You need those things, but you need concrete evidence of your testing your thesis of willingness to buy. Then you will go from hopes and dreams to we're on to something, and this can be very repeatable. We can make this really big.
No, fantastic. This is great advice. Now let me sort of take an aspect of that because while you were talking, you could get the impression that it's all there. Then you have growth, and you are adding customers and customers. You do exactly what you were just explaining. But your market is fairly cyclical. Other markets that of founders in the audience, their market is very cyclical. You are currently going through sort of a rough time because higher education, is after the pandemic, it's not as high growth as it used to be. Very similar to, to other industries. So if you could talk a little bit about, your experience of managing sort of, that cyclicality and coping with it, what keeps you going? I mean, you have to make hard decisions, but always with the aspect of sales, business development, sort of in the back of your mind. How do you cope with with that sort of not linear curve?
Yeah, great question. So there will always be bumps and ups and downs. That is very, very clear. One of the one thing that I'll give a few things to think about. You always need your vision in your back pocket, because as a founder, I always share, and I probably stole this from someone else, that 90% of my time I am making sure the company does not fail. 90% of my time. The other 10%, I'm having the time of my life. It's the greatest thing in the world, the most fun, the most exciting, to use the full extent of my brain to bring a vision to life. But 90% of the time, I have to make sure the company is not failing. And in that 90% of the time, it's sales, it's revenues, it is adjusting with the changes and adjusting with the time. So to give some more evidence, when you're in a market that's forever changing, you have to continue to test your thesis. I'm gonna be very boring on willingness to buy. So years ago, when we created a new partnership, we would expect a contract that come in about this big. This year, when we have a new customer, the contract might come in this big. So we cannot keep our assumptions from 2 years ago. We need to retest those assumptions and figure out what our new expected business volume is going to be and project out from our new expected business volume. Also have to be very sensitive and make some assumptions that things are not going well on the other side for customers. So you might have to make some more concessions with contracts. You might create more pilot or limited time opportunities for customers to help adjust to what they're trending to in their business. You have to be more creative in how you structure relationships, realizing that it's not just your business, that might be going through a season, they could be going through a season. And if you, as the number one salesperson in the organization, can speak to your customer about the season they're going through, the cycle they're going to, and respect that, and they can see that you're willing to accommodate their situation in order to provide a solution that will get them to a better position. Again, it's not about you. No one cares about your payroll. No one cares about your sales. No one cares vacation time you promised some employees. No one cares about any of those things. It's, I recognize you're going through X or Y. I want to help you get to Z. Right now, things may be difficult for you to get to Z. Let's figure out a way somehow that we can do it. And then maybe in the future, we will do some terms that might be awesome on both sides, but let's do whatever it takes to get to Z. And when you have sales reps on your team, they will not be able to have that type of business conversation, understanding what's going on in the executive's shoes, like you will, and being able to see from their point of view and from their eyes. We got to get into Z. And there's a big difference between a pitch and figuring out how to help them accomplish their life goals. And as a founder, you need to help your customers accomplish their life goals, whatever season they're going through. No one cares about your payroll.
No, that's just that's honest, but it's great advice. I the founders really appreciate that. Before we wrap up, one question specifically too, because this is a panel for rural Nevada founders, not in the urban centers necessarily. If you could talk a little bit about this specific sort of decentralization. You have, your product is an app. You have employees anywhere really. A lot of them are remotely. So like to inspire the the rural founders that can also build their company in rural Nevada, but their market is not necessarily in rural Nevada. But they can build a company, can scale a company from that geography. If you could sort of talk a little bit about that from that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a blessing to be in a rural environment. I want to share with you some advantages. When I first got started, I assumed that I needed to fly and go visit every customer. I assumed that I needed to go to every conference. I assumed that I needed to be face-to-face in order for someone to sign a contract of 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 or even 100,000. When the pandemic hit, I became a rural founder. I couldn't get on a plane. I couldn't get on a train. I couldn't get on a bus if I wanted to. Access to my customers suddenly changed. And there was this thing called the internet. And who knew that on the internet, you can jump on a video call and I could be in one day, I can be in Chicago and Miami and San Antonio, and then wrapping up my day in San Diego, because I can take the entire time zone of the US and accomplish it all from 2 steps away from the bathroom. That is a beautiful thing. And as a rural founder, you don't need to spend money on travel, transportation, all those different things. The world is more ready for you than ever before, because everyone is used to now doing business over the phone and over the internet. So your operating expenses or false limitations. I had false limitations that I needed to be with someone. And all of those, everything is now equal. If you can pick up your phone and you have unlimited minutes, you have the same opportunity as everyone else in more urban or suburban environments. So it's just about, as a salesperson or a founder, how many times you're actually going to pick up the phone. I think the biggest issue, not just for salespeople, but also founders, is call reluctance. If you don't want to make the phone calls to grow your business, you will not grow your business. I can line up 10 founders, I don't care what city they're from, figure out how many calls they're making a day, and that will tell me who is going to have a more successful business over time. It's not going to be accurate, but I think we can all sit back and predict that one person might have more customers at the end of a year versus another person, with everything being equal. So so I don't see any limitations other than the amount of times as a founder you do this. And you can, that's it. Maybe this too, sending some emails, but it's the number of customers you're talking about their problems and their goals, not your sales numbers. So God bless you. You know, the best thing that happened to me is I can do more meetings per day using this thing called the internet than I could flying around. So my productivity went up 2 or 3 or 4x. Got a voice, you've got a vision, and you've got people who want that really want what you have. And the only thing that's in the way is your creativity and the number of times you do this. That's about it. There's lots of other things you can learn. There's books to read. I'd love to you all to read Spin Selling. If you haven't read Spin Selling by Neil Rackman, it's a phenomenal book. That's one of the best I would encourage. The second book I would encourage is Conversations That Win the Complex Sale. So those would be 2 great books that I would highly encourage you to walk away with. It would be $30 that can bring in so much more in terms of revenue. So grab those 2 and then grab the phone. That would be my advice. There's no limitations other than the limitations we set in here.
I mean, this is wonderful advice. So it's almost felt like closing words. But anything else you would like to add to share with the founders, or is that? I mean, that is already it, I think. But if there's anything else you would like to add, please do.
Yeah, the only thing else I would think about as founders is there's a lot of things that are more fun than hearing the word no. Lots of things that are more fun. So I find that people have intentions to do sales. People have great intentions to do marketing, great intention to make calls. Put it in your schedule. It has to be in your schedule. If your schedule does not have time to make sales calls, to send the sales emails, to reply, then you are not selling. You are just trying to get the mood or the mojo or the right feeling, like hopefully it happens today. And, but I needed to work on the product. I needed to do this. One of my team members had a question here. I needed to tighten up this one pager. I needed to tweak the website. I needed to talk legal. I needed to do this. There are 1,000 things that you can do as a founder other than hear the word no. And many of them will add to the bank account and add the sale that you really need to get your company to the level you know you want it to be in order for you to bring the solution you know people need to change the world in the way you know it needs to be shaped. So put it in your schedule. You got to be in your schedule. Otherwise, you will find you would be a busy person with no sale. Put it in the schedule. And I think that'd be the last thing. It's got to be in your schedule. If it's not in your schedule right now, when this video ends, open your schedule, look at it, and make a change.
All right, great. Well, wonderful. So I want to thank the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development team for putting this together. Let's give them a big round of applause. Once again, the star of the show was Mr. Karsten Heise. He's the Senior Director of Strategic Programs and Innovation. You can visit with him and follow up on any of the questions that he asked some of those founders. You saw there were some parts cut and you may be interested to find out what information was cut. We want to thank Greg Bordelin and Carly Smith for doing the editing and putting it together and bringing it to town. Thank you very much. They did all the hard work, so we really appreciate that.